This video and podcast is for those that are interested in knowing the difference between a franchise-owned location and a corporate-owned location in the franchising world. So a franchise-owned location is a business that's owned and operated by a franchisee. You have the franchisor, which is a licensor that awards a license to the franchisee, which basically for generally a 10-year period, you can use the brand, use their systems, and have benefits potentially from suppliers that they have in the ecosystem. Where a corporately owned and operated location is, there's no franchisee, there's a franchisor, and the franchisor is running that business as it was their own, as it is their own business. So that could be a restaurant. For example, First Watch, which recently IPOed, most of their locations are corporate owned. Starbucks, which is not actually a franchise, but is a licensor. Over 90% of their locations in the United States are owned and operated by Starbucks. A franchise called Panda Express, thousands of locations in the United States, only 7% of those locations are owned by franchisees. And the franchisee-operated Panda Expresses are generally operated in airports, or it could be a military base. Some of the benefits to the franchisor when you're a system that's mostly franchisee-owned is you don't have to focus on hiring, firing people, managing a huge team. You can just focus on developing the brand, training, improving the processes, focus on the technology, and then let the franchisee deal with all the people and HR and all that. It allows the franchisor, like in the case of Domino's, to really just focus on the technology and how do you get the product from the franchisee to the consumer as fast as possible and with the best experience. So the franchisor can really focus on the customer journey while the franchisee focuses on the operations as well as on staffing, which this video is from 2021. In the United States, with unemployment in some areas as low as 4%, you need someone focused on staffing full time, especially in food and beverage and in hospitality. It'd be hard for the franchisor that's based, say, in California to be really focused and be able to hire the best people here on the ground in Miami, Florida, for example. Now, some of the benefits for a system that has corporate-owned locations, if the franchisor is owning and operates, say, a restaurant, they feel your pain. They understand when the supplier is being unruly. They understand the customer complaints. They understand what you're going through as a franchisee because they're doing the same thing for their own location. That being said, ideally, there's not a high concentration of corporate stores compared to franchise locations. As I mentioned with Panda Express, 93% are corporate owned, 7% are franchise locations. So when you have that disequilibrium, you're going to have much more focus from the franchisor on their own locations as they're making more money from the operations than the royalties that the 7% of franchisees are paying on their sales. And that's reflected if you look at the financials for a lot of systems that have many corporate locations. See how their corporate units do compared to their franchise units. And generally, they're operating with better profit margins, higher sales. But that's an important thing to ask. And you can check leveraging our database at vettedbiz.com. See on the metrics app how many franchise locations there are compared to corporate locations. And then ask how the franchisees are doing compared to the corporately owned and managed units, and understand what the discrepancy is from and how the franchisor is going to support you and focus on you as a franchisee instead of their own corporately owned and managed. So that's been a little bit about a corporate owned as well as a franchise owned business in the United States.